Welcome to Lupo's Woocast, episode 1. This is our very first episode. Thank you for joining us. My name is Taryn. I have a partner off screen named Lorelai. She does not like being on video, but you will hear her voice. But if you're listening to a podcast, you really don't need to see us. I guess this is people that are just on YouTube that want to watch the video. So this is called Lupo's Woocast, and we'd like to say it is esoteric talk without the cringe. And by that, we mean that we feel like a lot of spiritual talk has a lot of claptrap without really just getting down into the messages. And when we talked about stuff spiritually 20 years ago, it didn't seem so weighed down with puffery.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of song and dance around it now.
And if you feel the same way I do, where you will watch a YouTube video or see some guru talk and you're like, what was that about? But okay, I want to be positive and go along to get along kind of thing, be happy about it, but you're not really understanding the message or processing it. So we like to keep things, although we cover some tough topics, we like to keep it straightforward. And if you're like us, where the new stuff is just kind of fluff and hard to digest, although they might have good messages in it.
It's hard to get past all the new language.
Yeah, the lexicon really just kind of turns me off. So we will mention some of those things, but not necessarily as explanations. I'm not going to be like...
Well, and, it kind of creeps up out of nowhere. Like, all of a sudden, there'll be all these new phrases that you're supposed to say, and you're just supposed to know what they mean.
Yeah, and
I don't.
It's tough because we run in kind of, woo circles. We have an open mind. We have lots of friends, and we try to do a big tent where everybody, I respect their belief systems, and your spirituality is your own thing. But for us to communicate and understand each other, sometimes it's like they're just speaking a whole different language, and they might as well be.
And a lot of times I feel that it doesn't seem to benefit anything. A lot of these new phrases and stuff are really kind of just a way to check out or just check a box. It's the new praying for you.
Yeah, praying for you. Yeah.
Like on the Facebook post, praying for you. Did you really pray for them, or did you just say it on the post?
Right. And the other, it feels like a politician.
It does. It's very like I'm saying
say
all
a lot,
the new things.
But
the
there's
new
no
deal.
Substance.
Like
things are going to improve. What's that mean? They're just going to be better. You'll see. Well, what do you, So, gosh, an example of this. If you're new and you're listening, you're like, what are they talking about?
It kind of feels like slogans.
Yeah. You know how jargon changes on the internet. Like every few days, there's some sort of new saying, and everybody's saying it and adopting it like they knew what it was. And that's been going on forever. I mean,
yeah, that's just...
we had jive talk when we were little kids, and then it turned into your mama jokes, and then it turned into whatever. We had our own crud. These days, though, the spiritual world has
they seem to be going through it at like a crazy pace, and it seems like, seriously, a way to check out. Like, my personal one that I just cannot stand is the I see you.
Sorry, we're not picking fights with our friends that say that stuff, but yeah.
Because there are a lot of people that say it and mean it, but it seems like it's turned into I see you means I see you're struggling with something, but I'm not really going to get involved. Yeah. But I want to feel like I did the right thing and that I'm a good person, so I'm just going to say that.
That's it. It's like I'm setting a hard boundary. I see you. You have a problem.
But I don't want anything to do with it. Best of luck to you.
But I want to sound spiritual and high vibe.
And that's the thing. Instead of just saying, right now I am all full up and I can't, I don't know how to help you with this, that seems to not be a healthy response or considered a healthy response.
You can be like, I care about you, I just can't take this on. This is a problem you got to solve.
I think there's a level of honesty that is being hidden behind fluttery words.
And it seems to be rampant in New Age and spiritual talk.
And it's come off as being kind of hokey. And then honestly, some of it's just kind of like, I kind of get embarrassed when people start talking like that, and I sort of check out.
Yeah. It's hard because they might be. We have a lot of friends that are the nicest people in the world, and then they start throwing around that stuff, and it's like, oh, just talk to me normal. Like you don't need to use any puffery with us.
Well, holding space for somebody, like a lot of us have online relationships, and that one I can understand, and it doesn't bother me that much, although it has really gotten watered down.
Yeah.
Where again, it's the new praying for you, and where it's like I just don't want to be involved in any way, but I want everybody else that's reading this to think that I am.
There you go. And so if you can identify with this, where you're like, yeah, I just want to talk about, some topics of woo, and every time we do, someone starts just saying all the new
Starts using a whole bunch of phrases that you
buzzwords,
don't know, and then
the
there's been
spiritual
times
buzzwords, and you just don't even know what's going on after a while.
yeah, because there's been several that I'll be like, what is that? And you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, and it's
And your
tough.
message gets lost. And then, it kind of makes you feel that like, well, why don't I know that when everybody else, did I miss something? Am I not keeping up with my spirituality? Am I not, being a good person because I don't know this? And I kind of feel, it feels like a form of bullying, like the cool kids had the cool new thing and you weren't cool enough to
know the buzzwords.
to know all the cool new things. And
Yeah, so we're going to talk about spiritual bullying in different ways, and what we mean by that is not being bullied by a spirit, but in your circles, your spiritual circles, a lot of times people do stuff just to fit in, or they feel pressure or bullied into it. And
and
this
it,
was real rampant when we were kids.
oh
Like
yeah, you were
you
like,
forced a kid to go to church if they believed it or not. It was you will be this religion because everybody before you.
because our family is this religion and that's that, and you're whatever you believe doesn't matter, you just do what you're told.
Yeah, heritage was like bullying by dead people.
Yeah,
As
culture, the same
this is
thing.
our culture. You will do this even though you don't agree with it or it doesn't fit these lifestyles, and it's thousands of years old. But you're going to believe it because our family believed it. So there was a lot of that. I consider that spiritual bullying. I mean, to push a kid into something that they don't know. And it's different if you're like, all right, I want my kid to be exposed to this so they know what it is. Okay. But does your kid really have a choice of saying, no, I don't want to go?
I didn't.
No, I don't either. It was tough.
I was forced every time my mom changed religions. Here we go.
Here we go again.
New church, new rules, new.
So we feel like we're going to get into spiritual bullying, like being pushed in it. Have you ever felt that way? Feel free to talk about that in the comments. That a lot of times your spirituality is a result of other people's beliefs that were pushed into you and not really what you sat and examined yourself.
That's kind of like, who you choose as a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you were 16 is not who you would choose as a boyfriend or girlfriend when you were 30, because you've turned into a different person.
And very few people have the same religious beliefs their entire life. They go through processes where they're like, they cut this part out they get rid of this part, they change religions and sects. I can't tell you how many Christians I knew that moved from one Christian to another Christian to another Christian, trying to find the right one that was for them.
Just trying to find
And
something to
I
fit
think that's normal and healthy to explore until it clicks where you need to be. And I think it's really rare that you would just happen to hit the genetic lottery to be born into it. Of, oh, this is the perfect
fit for me.
And these days, there's more like cafeteria religion, where you're like at a buffet where I like this part, don't like this part, like this part, don't like this part. I'm going to form my own belief system out of all these little pieces.
Well, you have that option. Before, that was like, in little towns, that was your sole social experience was church.
And we lived in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, where it is hardcore Christian here. And if you step out of line of that, you can take a lot of heat, Or if you're any sort of other form of Christian, so like an Essene Christian or something that they don't understand, or a Seventh-day Adventist, or
you're Baptist or you're not.
Yeah. And so it's still alive and well, and you guys from small towns probably know that. But we wanted to talk about this topic. And the first thing we're going to talk about is we talked about the newspeak. And what I mean by that is especially with, I'm going to bounce around a lot of different things, and you can transpose this to your own religion. If you're Jewish, you're Muslim, you're Christian, They all do it.
Wiccan, they
Wiccan,
all organized religion
pagan,
does this.
yeah, you could be pagan, whatever. But there are their own language and own set of talk. And I remember where I really saw this was Scientology. So I dated a girl who was a Scientologist once, and I was interested because this was back in like the 90s, and I didn't know what it was. And they rewrote a lot of language. So when I hear these buzzwords, I know someone's a Scientologist. Like they will say something very that only their language and it means a
Yeah.
certain thing, and the same with a lot of religions, I assume, right?
Yeah, there are, like, you can always pick out a Catholic saying, or uh, what's it? The Jehovah's Witness have certain things they say.
Certain phrases and keywords, and you guys know what I'm talking about. That you'll instantly know that someone else is a Jehovah's Witness by the way they say something, or they're Mormon. So it doesn't really matter, but it seems to be prevalent in more of the pagan, witchy, new age, spiritual. They finally got on board with that and started making their own
Saying that
language
they
up.
didn't like it, and
Yeah,
then
we don't like
basically
these
turned
things,
into the same thing.
and I feel that is I assume I don't even know where they came from because honestly I just didn't care enough to go look. I'm sure this stuff came from like gurus
I'm sure it
or
did.
some sort of person that wrote a book that said, you know, I'm going to hold your container or whatever, your space. Or what did you
Provide the container.
provide the container in space and fill it up with
I don't know what it is.
your claptrap. So it's one of these things.
Insert new word here.
The Dark Night of the Soul or whatever. Just stick it in there.
Oh, you got it right.
I did. I usually say Long Night of the Soul. I screw it up. I make my own. I'm making my own. The Long Night of the Soul. So there's certain things, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it because some things like Dark Night of the Soul or shadow work, I kind of get why they do that because
well, for a long time, if you asked somebody, like, what is that? And they'll be like, oh, it's this. But then you ask somebody else and it's this. And you don't know.
Yeah. I was in this
And
movement.
it kind of turned into, well, if you don't know, I'm not going to tell you.
And this is a good example. So we put together a festival of like different spiritual beliefs, like a Woo Fest. And it was a free festival. People came of all different things, and we just kind of hung out and tried to high vibe together and push out a good wave of energy into the darkness that's encroaching on us. And we just thought it would be a good way to push back. But I remember being kind of talked down to and dumb because they kept talking about shadow works and stuff, and I was like, "What does that mean? Like shadow boxing? What is shadow work?" And when I asked someone, they couldn't explain it. They wouldn't give me a well,
Like,
I
you
was
just
working
know
on
what it
myself,
is. You know.
And I was like, and then I felt stupid for asking because obviously I know I'm somebody that's in a movement that looks people would assume and it's like no, I don't spend time learning all these things. So it was one of those things that I still don't know what shadow work is. I think,
Well, and it depends on who you talk to.
It depends on who you talk to. Yeah. To this day, I still don't. You could ask me, and I'd be like, I don't know. I think it's something to work on yourself. I don't know. So point being is, don't feel bad about that. We're here to say that it is okay to go your own way, to not use all the buzzwords. If you like the buzzwords and they make it clear and concise, then all means use them. I'm not saying
just
you
know
don't,
that
but
they
you're
are
going to
ever
lose
changing.
people.
So the thing is, though, they're ever changing because remember when this all first started, twin flame and soulmate,
Yeah.
those meant specific things, but now it's all your twin flame is the person you'll fight with the most. Before twin flame, 5 years ago, twin flame was like that was your match made in heaven, and
Right.
now it's basically your frenemy kind of thing. Like I'm not sure even what
sure.
it is. And it just like I feel like it's ever changing and evolving, and as more people come into it, they think it means something, and so they just change that meaning. Or somebody, there's a lot of people out there that talk like they're automatically looked up to, kind of like they come across as very well educated about something, and like, oh well, he's talking like he really knows what he means, but they really don't. and
Yeah.
it kind of ends up changing the meaning, but they're the loudest. You know how like the squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of thing, like, so the loudest person preaching what this means, they're going to get heard the most.
Yeah.
And
And
again, if you are the one that's like, wait, no, I don't think that's what it means. Well, what do you think it means? Like, what do you mean? Are you calling me a liar? And there's a real edge to some of the new age stuff. Has gotten real cutthroat.
I've noticed that. Like, okay, we're supposed to be enlightened beings trying to raise this place up, but they don't act like what they don't
No,
act like they act like children fighting
they
with
act
each
like the
other.
cool kids in high school that are gonna beat you up for not being cool enough.
Or they bicker and fight. I've seen we will be on this like high vibe chat and these people will get into it about a certain topic and just it becomes a Facebook fire thread,
Oh
where they
yeah, it's just a
burn each other
dumpster
down and
fire.
I'm like, "Whoa, man, what's and I think this is also part of guruism, and we're going to get to guruism that people look up to gurus when they first get in. It used to be a lot worse because the internet has kind of changed that.
Yeah, the internet killed the cult.
Yeah, it did. We'll do a whole topic on that show, but I am going to glaze over it here for a sec. That but there also is guru worship of a certain thing, and what's weird I notice is a lot of gurus really have a need, like a narcissistic need to be the guy or the woman
The one with all the
that's
answers.
figured it out. And I think you can tell the realism of someone when they're like, no, I don't really have all the answers. And what you say is a good idea. I haven't explored that myself. I haven't had that experience, but I understand what you're saying. I try to be very open-minded, but I never want to tell you what to think.
Well, and
Like
that's my thing. Anybody that goes around
you
saying that they have all the answers is an obvious liar.
that, or they
Like,
don't, they won't, they're not so arrogant to say that. They will
no,
not say
but
I have
that's
all the
kind of
answers,
the
but
impression they try to
they will
give.
argue with you and have a fight with you online about, you know, your container.
Yep.
So it's one of those things that I feel like someone who's in a good spiritual place is never going to take that bait. And that's like the 3D has come in and my ego is in, and now I need to be the most spiritual guy.
I think that's shadow work.
Is that?
I think that's what you're supposed to take care of and figure out why you're being triggered to act like that. I believe that is what shadow work
I
is,
just
but
figured.
honestly, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's what falls in for you and me. It just falls into the category of try to make yourself a better person.
Well, here's I think what's happened is people don't. You got to eat, and you got to work in this world. Unless you just completely check out and become like a monk and live on the side of a mountain or something. And so people have to earn a living, and it's hard when you mix spirituality with commercialism of I need you to buy my book or take my class, because then you need to come across with something that's important, and it kind of cheapens the message in a way, but it shouldn't, because we got to earn a living.
We all have to eat.
All right, and it shouldn't, but it feels sometimes that way. And I feel like because there's a bunch of online gurus that everybody's trying to claw and get in their own audience,
Well, and they get competitive.
and they get very competitive. This message is my message, but they forget that there are like millions and millions of people out there. Eventually, you're going to draw the right people that feel like you do. That you don't need to.
You don't have
You don't have to compete. And it's okay, because perhaps another guru is saying good stuff that you can pull a piece here and pull a piece there. It's just I don't know. There's just some drive that some people really want to be led. Like
there's that competitive element too of, oh no, you don't know what you're talking about. Like the threat of somebody else having an answer that you might not have is like the worst thing. And that's the whole point of the spiritual movement, was to step away from that. There's only one route, like that's why these people split off from.
Yeah, just about every religion has, and everybody has these split fractions.
Yeah.
And I think this is a natural law that I notice even in our own tiny little group. What did we say about after about 20 people in a group, it fractures and divides?
Yep.
That you're rare to have more than 20 people like successfully together going the same direction. There's always a faction that once a group gets too big, it's just a numbers game. It breaks off and pulls half the group apart.
It always says, whether it
And
be
it
a
doesn't
group of
matter what it
friends,
is.
whether it's a team, whether it's.
It could be a survival group. It could
Yep.
be, a church
And
group.
I've seen it. And so what happens
In
is
churches.
they fractured off, and you're close enough, you can still work with them, but you just don't want them in your everyday.
Yeah.
Like,
Like there's
so
enough
this
of a
group is
difference
close
that
enough
gets in.
to work with, and this group is close enough to work with, and then those split off, and it goes farther out. And then those two over here, they can probably work together, but they're so far away from you now that.
And the only way churches that run like businesses can stop that is to lay hard lines of you will act this way and be like this if you want to be with us. And that message is big
You are
enough.
not so and so religion unless you do these hard line things.
Or we're going to ostracize you if you don't play this game. And it is a way to keep people growing large enough in a group and not allowing fractures of this and fractures of this and splits of this.
Well, and then it's held in by threats also.
And they create something really, really good that you feel like you have this fellowship, you want to be part of it. And then as soon as you hear that voice talking to you, that inner voice of, this isn't what they're saying, doesn't sit right with me. I wonder if anyone else feels this way. And you start talking, and then you and 10 other friends decide to go somewhere else.
Well, if you look at the big religions, honestly, they're held together by fear.
I think almost every major religion is fear-based. And I think that keeps a large group together going the same direction. And I think if you were to truly let it go organically, I think there would be very small levels of associating and lots of just millions of little groups. And people would be constantly
and it'd be little villages
around.
Everywhere.
Tons of little villages. I think that would be the natural.
That is the natural
order. Perhaps someone dynamic would come along, big enough that people would come in for a bit, but eventually, once you've kind of found your own spiritual peace, you don't need that information anymore. You're like, I got it.
In general, are always changing and growing. Like, what fits at one point in your life doesn't fit anymore. Like, how many times have you just gotten rid of something that doesn't fit?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do this anymore, so I don't, like.
And it's tough. Do we ever get to a point in life, and let me throw this out in the comments too, do we ever get in a point where you've learned enough? We always talk about, well, I need to learn something new every day. I need to learn this and that. What if you found spiritual peace and were already happy with what you have?
I think somebody would come along and try to prove to you that you weren't,
you need more.
Because they aren't.
And I feel like I'm in a really good spiritual place that I don't really need anything. I don't need to listen to other people talk about it. I don't need lessons about it. I feel like I'm in a really good spot. But is that arrogant to say that? Am I allowed to have inner peace?
I don't know, because we're taught from birth that you're never good enough.
Yeah, there's something you're missing. You don't know everything, and I don't know everything, and I'm okay with that.
And I think, well, the other one was self-care, like taking care of yourself. If you're happy, then what is to stop you from just stopping and being happy? Like, do you need to keep clawing your way up if you're happy where you're at?
I mean, some religions understand that, like Buddhism is all about experience the moment, like being happy and being cool with what you have and enjoying it. And I get that. And perhaps there are groups that maybe I've just not been part of that feel that way.
But it seems like there's always something you have to attain for.
Yeah, why do I have to keep going back every week for a lesson from the Bible every single week? Like, when do I get to a point where I'm living as a good Christian and I'm just going to be cool with it? Like, why do I have to keep coming back?
I'm not sure that's how it works.
No, it's
like,
not designed to work like that.
And
but I feel like,
again, it's another system that's actually, people go, oh, well, the system's just broken. No, it's working exactly the way it was made to.
We'll probably do another podcast on this topic too, but organized religion's dying quickly with the younger generations. It's too constrictive. And it's too time consuming, and it doesn't fit what they want.
And if we're being realistic, the younger generations don't have the attention span.
Yeah, unless you can make TikTok videos about God, you're kind of in trouble.
Well, and they've had so much exposure to everything that, again, it kind of, I I don't want to say this because I don't want to offend anybody, and it's not how I mean it. It's kind of like internet. When you can see all the bad things that go with all the good things from your living room, why would you go to this church and that
Yeah,
church?
or I
And
could watch it. So
you can go to church online.
you say that,
It's
and this
not the
was
same.
interesting 2 years ago during all the nonsense that went on, that people had to do it online, and I was in that boat. I was going to a church. I liked the church, and um, I felt very bullied by what was going on. I didn't agree with the direction of their. I have to be careful what I say because I'm on YouTube, but you can read between the lines.
Their
They
policies.
wanted protective gear on policies that I would not do. I did not feel comfortable doing it, and they just threw everybody out of church that wouldn't do it. My church threw me out, told me not to come back, put a big sign up, said I wasn't welcome unless I did something
And you should
that's
jump through these
forbidden to say
hopes
on
that you
YouTube.
don't agree with.
Yeah. Um. So,
For no less spiritual reasons.
like the one place you should go when you're sick is church. I mean, they have a history of healing people, right? So if you want that, and the thing is about what's hard to do online, especially as us as energy workers,
You cannot.
it is really hard to shoot. And I mean, you can do it.
It is the
People
difference
heal online.
between listening to an album of your favorite band and going to the concert.
Excellent analogy. Yeah, so I get why these people want to be in a group because you're talking about like, especially a group doing like a group healing or a mass sermon or something. The energy is palpable. You can feel it, and it's a cool experience, and you want to be part of that. And you get to just hang out and talk to people you like afterwards. So I get the fellowship part of it. But to have that, you have to
Comply with.
comply, and that's tough. And that's a tough sell. And I feel very much being bullied. Like, if you want these things, you have to do these things, even if you don't agree with them, you know. And that's a tough sell because they'll.
It was hard for you, I remember, because you thought you had found your place and it turned out not even close.
Yeah, it was sad. It's sad. If I'm hoping they find their way because they're really nice people. I like them, but they're very lost into politics. And let's talk about that as our next stage.
The political aspect of
Yeah, the
group
shifting.
dynamics.
We're going to talk about shifting your entire belief system to fit a new narrative that comes out. So you are you have these sets of beliefs, and I'm just going to say some things, and you guys can transpose this to whatever you want. But say I'm a let's see, I'm a Jew, and I'm following my Jew doctrine most of my life, and then all of a sudden things happen in society. Again, cough, cough. That um, that makes you second guess how you start doing stuff. You know, man, I can't even. This is really hard to maneuver around the censoring on YouTube, so that's why I'm
So it would
stumbling.
be like you go to a Seventh day Adventist church, you don't eat meat. But all of a sudden now, we've
Decided
that it's okay to eat meat and everybody needs to eat meat.
yeah, we're gonna change something
It's
very
not a sin
fundamental.
anymore.
We've decided, yeah, someone came along and said this is in the Bible, so it's okay now, and we've changed something major that we believe.
Because we're just
we're
moving with the times. Yeah, that's it. It doesn't have anything to do with an outside political agenda or bullying from
right.
other aspects.
It's like you're Jewish and you no longer have to keep your head covered because you know what? A lot of people were complaining that they were too hot, it was uncomfortable, and they didn't want to do it. And
And other
so,
people felt excluded from that because of
yeah,
that. And
and it doesn't, it's not fitting in with a
the
social
world,
narrative that's
yeah,
going on
the
right now
world
being
social
pushed.
narrative that's being pushed right now.
Those kind of things. So all of a sudden, they're dwindling in numbers, dwindling in numbers, and then they're like, guess what? We're going to change something major.
And so all the people that were faithful up until then are like, ew,
Like, what did
no,
I,
what?
yeah, what am I doing here? And and this is a hard dance because we talked about this. There's a lot of really toxic stuff in every religion. It's not. I'm not picking on one religion. All of them have good stuff and bad stuff in their beliefs. And
And if you wanted to get rid of the bad stuff to be a better group of people to raise your people up, that's healthy and good, and I fully support that.
right,
But when you only do it because it's the cool new trend,
you're worried
and
about
because you're
getting
worried that your
shamed,
money is getting cut off and you're getting shamed,
shamed, social media shaming.
or your social credit factor is going to go down.
Right. You're like, let's accept this so we can be the cool hip church and we'll get new people come in because we can't reach the young generation.
Well, and I mean, and I think that is what's destroying them. Like,
And maybe it needs to go some things in it because there's a lot of toxic stuff that we congratulate you for getting
had
rid of
you
it.
done it for the right reasons, it would be something to stand behind.
But I feel like it's social.
But it's not. It's
virtue signaling.
It's virtue signaling to the extreme.
Virtue signaling.
And jumping on the bandwagon with everybody else. And
yeah, we have a good friend. I'm not going to mention names or anything. Going through this, where her church changed a big direction, and it's been too much for her. It's too much.
She just.
And they're doing it just to be more popular and be a bigger church and bring new people in, and that's, I'm fine with free associations. I'm fine with things changing direction, but I do feel like if
when
you're in that situation,
you change your core values,
and you're being bullied into going along with it, then no, you don't owe any loyalty to that church. I don't feel. I feel like as soon as someone uses
and I feel like that church
kind
is a
of bullying,
sellout at that point too.
Yeah, I do feel like they sold out. Like, you know what? If you want your church to be this, start a new church with this. Don't like devalue the old.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. It's difficult. I don't have a high opinion of most churches to begin with, just because I've been through so many of them.
Yeah.
But it really bothers me to see that you only have 6 people left that are going to your church, but let's ostracize those 6 people's beliefs now, because maybe, just maybe, we'll be the cool new church.
Yeah,
and that just feels like a sellout business decision and not a faith-based one.
And this is what we were kind of going with before too. The group dynamics and the politics outweigh the actual spiritual belief.
Yeah.
That now it's become very much the virtue signaling of politics.
And this is what we do now.
Look at us, we're the cool hip church now. And I don't know. I'm torn on that because there is good in ripping the old stuff out, but for the right reasons.
Not for political reasons or the new trend or because you're being forced into it.
Yeah. So I'm kind of halfway, but you guys can see that there is good, but there's also bullying. Like if I was in that and I was like, I'm in this church because it doesn't eat meat, and now you're going to be like, we're just going to overlook this because we have some new members and we could get a lot more members if we could.
And now every Tuesday we have a steak dinner.
Steak dinner.
Yeah.
like I'd be like, well, this is not why I joined. I'm out. And there's always that risk. And their church is banking on that they pick up new people that are better people and let the old ones go. That's part of it. Let's talk
about. And I mean, if we're being realistic, it's a money's game. It's money numbers with churches.
Yeah, they still have to pay bills, and we live in our homestead. Oh, if you guys don't know this, again, we live off grid at a homestead way out in the South Carolina countryside, and like one of our homesteads out there, and there are church after church after church.
You're surrounded by 3 churches within like a 5-mile radius.
Oh, less than a mile.
Oh, less than a mile. Yeah. I mean, we have one that's like almost across the street.
And probably 3 of those churches are abandoned or down to like a car or 2.
They're maintained, but we never see any services happening there.
And if you go online and look at the church, because I was curious and I looked what an online service was, everybody's over 70.
And there's only like 4
or 5 of them.
And grandkids.
Grandkids that look miserable going like this, waiting for it to be over, that their grandparents made them go. There's that. And, if you're listening, I covered my face. I forgot this is a podcast.
Oh yeah.
Um, and we also seen this with things like I feel like there's spiritual bullying with paying dues. And what I mean by this is, say you want to join a coven. What's that experience like? If you wanted to, if you guys don't know, pagans sometimes or witches sometimes roll in covens, and you can transpose this to any being a deacon in your church or anything like
Yeah, I
that.
think you have to climb the corporate ladder,
You have to
basically.
you have to kiss butt and climb ladder, and I think
And even the titles for things. I mean, if you look at them, the queen,
yeah
the queen, the king, the cardinal, the deacon. It's all
the hierarchy.
it's a hierarchy, and it's very, which I don't have a problem with if that's what you're choosing, but it just seems very. I don't think that you can go around going, "We're all created equal. Now kiss my ring."
Yeah, that part's ridiculous.
Bow down before me.
And just the hey, I want to hear your side. I want to learn this information, and it's like, oh well, we have these elders in the church that decide most of this information, or we have a queen in the coven, or something like that. That you have to, in order to get in good socially, you have to kind of kiss the ring and kiss butt and not stir any waves up and not ask questions.
Oh, that's the other thing. And if you have a different
Don't
way of
be
doing things, it's all about ancestry and tradition and ritual.
yeah, don't think that you're like, do we really need this ritual? It's making me uncomfortable. Yeah, we really need this ritual.
If you're not
You can
comfortable
go.
here, you should leave.
Yeah. And it again, it's free association because I know if I set my own church up and I was like, this is the way we're doing stuff, and people came and were like, yeah, it's not my thing. That's okay.
Cool, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for trying it out.
But again, I feel
But
like
I
it's a
also
money
wouldn't
making
be like,
scheme behind.
kiss my ring. You know, I know what I'm doing more than any of the rest of you, so this is the way it's going to be. Um,
And I'm the all high on,
yeah, it's tough because there are certain things if I ran a church that I would be pretty strict about. Like these are things that I don't want in our church. If you don't like
I mean,
it,
there's things in
start
our
your own
homestead
church.
that we're very strict
They're the
about.
same
But
way. So in a way, it's a little hypocritical because I'm like, hey, it's my way or the highway, but I also believe in property rights and that's my place, you know.
and also, I would
But
not
if
ill
we
wish
all
anybody that said, "Oh no,
no,
I don't
right,
want to do that."
because we have plenty of friends that wouldn't fit into our homestead that I love and I don't wish any bad will to. It's just not for them, you know. Um, but I also think that whew, that's a tough one
So
because
it's really hard to like
you want to
tiptoe
balance
through this.
yeah,
Where
you
like,
want to balance property rights and also being able to freely associate with your own group. You know, I want to be with a certain people of like-minded people that believe what I believe, but there's a fine line where you're starting to how do I say this? Starting to tell people what to believe.
yeah.
It's ideally, I'm hoping to find a bunch of people that feel the same thing I do, and we all believe the same thing together. I don't tell them what to think. I don't tell them what to do. We just live this lifestyle.
So we live a lifestyle and we let people come and go as they please. And if it was a really good fit, they'd probably stick around.
Right? It's kind of like my hackles go up and a big red flag comes up when someone's like, "Well, I'm a good Christian." The first thing I think to myself is,
Why are you telling me?
a good
Why are you
Christian
saying it out
doesn't need
loud?
to say I'm a good Christian. They live like it, and you go, "Oh, that guy seems pretty happy. I wonder what he's doing. I want to know
Like,
what he has."
we have a friend out there that
It's a
is a
really
good,
good Christian.
but never once does he go to church. Never once does he try to force anything on us. He's just a great guy
Great guy.
and super helpful, and never once pressures us about anything ever.
No,
Like, he's just
can
happy to
accept.
see you every time. And
And I want to be like him. You know, like he's a
well, and he says the
great.
same thing about you. I want to be like you got it down, man. You're not.
Those are the way to inspire people. You want to lead in your church, walk the walk, inspire people by how you live. Um, we try to like when I try to talk to people about spirituality, they're usually like, "Man, you guys, you seem so happy and calm." and they'll listen because they want the same in their life. That's how you inspire people. You live it. You don't have to go around and be like, I know something you don't,
And that's what I feel like that
and buy my
every
book and you'll find out.
organized religion or belief system or cult or whatever you want to call it, they all do this one thing. I know something you don't know.
Yeah.
Which automatically, as a human being, makes you go, what do you know that I don't know? Like, everybody's afraid of being left behind. And once you hit a place where, yeah, you probably know a million things I don't know, I don't care. And when you can get to the I don't care part, then you can start being, because I still am looking for stuff all the time, or seeing, like, what information is this? Or if something really pings, then, we talk about it. And
yeah, we'll hear a message come through, usually sideways, and I'll be like, hey, did that resonate with you? And you'll be like, oh yeah. We'll talk about that. And that's fine. You're listening, you're getting messages all the time from the other side. It's just, I can also sit and be like, I don't need to know everything, and that's okay, and I'm happy. And a lot of people, all right. So
you
something
can't be happy. That's a big one.
This is something I'm going to beat up on millennials a little bit about. At some point, they have a term called FOMO. You know what that is? That's the lexicon.
No clue.
FOMO means fear of missing out.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they'll text something. Someone will put a party up, and they'll go, "You want to go?" And they're like, "Not really, but FOMO." And then they'll go because they want to make sure they didn't miss out that something great went down at this party. So there is a bunch of social anxiety that has been trained by social media that you better be at something because you can miss out. And I
will say the generation after them just doesn't care, though.
Yeah, Generation Z is different. They're like, whatever. But the millennials, FOMO's for real. Like, we have a really good friend that is like, I have a major problem with FOMO. That I am scared to death I'm going to miss out on something. And they will go to stuff they don't want to do. They will be pressured into it because they're scared they're going to miss something great.
What if something happens, though, and I'm not there?
I won't be there in my Instagram shots with everybody else. There's that whole thing. And I feel like the new spiritual movement online is just pushing that FOMO. Like, you're going to miss out. You're going to miss out if you don't come to this festival. You're going to miss out if you don't do this, if you don't do that.
And it's so the opposite with the other generation. Our daughter just does not care. I'll be like, there's a party going on down there. You're going? She's, no, I'm going to stay home and watch an old TV show from 1992.
Our daughter's not into social media, which is shocking. I know what 16-year-old's not into social media, but she's not. And so
she's kind of bored with it.
I think that is being a social media thing, like just being raised on Instagram and Facebook, all the pressure of.
But she has like really strong boundaries for a 16-year-old. Like, if she is tired, she will not. You can't pay her to go.
Well, I want to back up because it's not just the millennial generation. Like in my generation, there was a fear that if I didn't go to a party, I'd miss out. And you'd wake like, all right, I'm young. My friends are going out drinking, and my girlfriend wants to go to dinner. So I either go out drinking with my friends, or I go out with my girlfriend. So good guy, I go out with my girlfriend. The next day, my friends are like, dude, you
should have went.
It was insane and crazy. And then you get this gut feeling of like, I made the wrong choice on that one. And that was for real. That was my college life. Like, that's for real. So FOMO is not just a millennial thing, but I think because it's on social media, it's thrown in their face.
I think the fear of missing out is on steroids for them. Yeah. Like, they were terrified of missing anything. And I think it's because they were so controlled.
That's probably true.
Like, we were free range. They were, like, I've seen kids, millennials, that their hands were being held at 12 years old crossing the street. Like, something that at 4 we would have been like, oh, no.
Yeah, Mom, don't hold my hand. You embarrass me.
Pretend you're not my parents.
Legit.
I don't know you.
So legit.
I mean, I remember
I wanted to pretend I was a feral
making eye
child.
contact with my mom, glaring her down, going, I don't know who that lady is. Like, while I'm talking to
your friend,
a friend from school.
There's a lady waving you. Yeah, I don't know.
She's
a homeless crazy lady.
She's a homeless crazy lady. That was.
That's so true.
And I had no shame about it. Whatever. And my mom's like, "How could you do that to me. It was easy.
So embarrassed back then of, we wanted to be so independent that
Well, our
didn't
entire
want to be,
generation pretended we did not have parents.
and
And
a lot of them
anybody
didn't really. I mean,
and most of us didn't.
legit, the 70s, 80s was a different time, man. Like, parents would just go away and leave for a week on vacation without you.
What did we just watch that thing that was saying there was actually something on the news every
commercial.
night that it was the intro to the news to be like, it's 10 o'clock, do you know where your children is? Like, our parents actually had to be reminded that they even had kids.
Yeah, so you had this thing where parents really gave you insane independence, and you and your friends were rewarded for independence culture. So when the parents came in, it'd be like, nah, man, I don't need you, mom. Don't hold my hand. Don't do this. And it's just 100% opposite. Like, of all of us screwed up kids, raised our own kids, and like, I'm gonna make sure I'm there. I'm not gonna be like my parents. And then they overdid it with their kids.
I had a millennial neighbor who
that now
could not function at all. Like, he would call his mom to pay the power bill because it was just so much. Couldn't do it.
Too hard.
It was he couldn't pay his bills. His mom had to come, and she would come and show him. He was like, I know how to do it. I just can't force myself to do it.
Yeah, adulting's so hard. And adulting sucks. Nobody wants to do it, but I get it. And people blame millennials, but it's our generation that's made them that way. So that's on us. Well, like, we screwed them up.
It was our parents and us.
And then our parents screwed us up.
Yeah.
Like, we were basically feral children,
Well, and I think that's because we were so feral. I think we locked down harder with oh my God, I know what I was doing. Like, I can't, like, I know what we were doing,
And you just want to do a better job than your parents did. So it's like, I'm going to be in everything that this kid does and make them feel loved. And in a way, they did a better job, but they went too far.
It went too far. It swung way too hard, and like, a 12-year-old doesn't need his hand held crossing the street, and that was a normal thing to see. But I want my hand held crossing the street still. I love it. You just like to have your hand. You just want to hold hands.
I tried to hold hands with the cat the other day. It didn't go well. She's over there on the bed. You can't see her, but we have a little kid in there. If you touch her paw, she's like, she freaks out. On a side note, you can't see that, so I keep forgetting we're doing podcast world. This is our first podcast.
Nobody can see Nobody can see the cat.
Well, they can watch this on YouTube and see this.
Well, no, nobody can see the cat. She's not.
Oh, she hasn't poked over yet. She's just right out of view.
She is sleeping.
Let's see. So we talked about just feeling like you've been bullied into your spirituality and doing stuff you want. And what happens eventually is you'll come to a healthier place where you deconstruct everything. I don't know if that's a guru word, sorry. But deconstruct means you just kind of like
take your belief system
take your beliefs and say, why do I believe this? And it's like, oh, because at 7 I was told this is the way it is, and it just got in my subconscious. But is it right for me? Should I still be doing this? And what happens is you have to use your logical brain to step aside and say, these are other people's beliefs that are ruling my life when I'm in my 40s. I still feel guilty about these things.
Well, that's like blaming your parents for what's wrong with your life. At that point, you've been away from them longer than you've been with them, and it's time to grow up and take responsibility for your own belief system.
It's the same deal as what Lorelai said, and this is a hard lesson because I'm not trying to beat y'all up, but you can only blame your parents for so much. Like, at some point, you have to choose to be happy and grow out of that. And some people are stuck. And
not being able to let it go is not going to hurt anybody but you.
You will be stuck, and I can't tell you how many people I know or women I've dated that they were so angry at their parents as later on adults, and
that they start feeling wronged about everything.
And everybody's parents grow up. It's not like that's a unique experience. Everybody's
I mean, like, how many times have we like said something, the kids walked off and we'd be like, I'm pretty sure we just messed her up. Like, if we were a therapy family, we'd be in therapy right now,
But the difference is I will set our girl down and be like, I said this and I have time to think about this and I think I screwed up. How do you feel about this? Did I screw up? And I'll ask her. I'll do some self-realization of, did I just screw this kid up? And I don't want her to go down that road.
The dismissing because it's an uncomfortable situation is just not good. Like, of course I'm right. I'm older than you. Like, how does that how did we even
And what
get
lesson
here?
are you teaching your children? That someone's older than you, you do
I'm
whatever
bigger
they
than you,
say.
so I'm right.
You do whatever they say because they're older or bigger. That is a bully situation if I've ever heard it.
It is,
And that's
and
a terrible
it's
precedence.
a fine line to walk as a parent without bullying, because like there's health stuff is the
Yeah, you have
hardest.
to protect their health and you're responsible for them. So there is part of me that says,
But
don't be crazy to hurt yourself.
like what do you do if you just have a kid that won't eat anything but garbage? Like if he just refuses to eat. Well, my thing was, I just didn't have it in the house, and you'll eat when you get hungry. Like it's amazing. People think that you'll like a 2-year-old will die if he doesn't eat every 5 minutes. Like no.
No, well, okay, for you guys that don't know, if you're new to the show, I am also a doctor. I'm just retired. And I did a lot of nutrition stuff. And what happens is the parents, it is a high cost to take people off addictive food. It is like taking cigarettes away from a toddler that has been smoking their whole life. Like there is no rationale. Taking them off the junk food
Well, and they have
makes them
no.
go bananas and berserk for a while, and parents aren't willing to pay that price to go through it.
Well, also they're not willing to give it up themselves either.
Yeah, they won't
Ninety
clean
percent
their
of the
own diet
time,
up.
it's not. They'll be like, "Oh, he just won't eat anything else."
It's like I
Does
know
he have a
soda.
paycheck because he's two? Like he
Like,
got this way
why are
because
you
you are giving
letting
him
a
this.
2-year-old drink soda? Well, he saw me drinking it and wanted it. That should tell you something. Don't, you're going to inflame that kid's brain giving him soda. Don't do that. Wait, this is more for our nutrition podcast. We have another podcast, but it's the point we come back to is it all comes from bullying, which is not just spiritual bullying, but I feel that it's just rampant in our society. You do what older people tell you to do. You do what
if you have
politicians tell you to
if you
do.
have
You do
tradition for anything,
traditional bullying from the dead people. It's
or
and
it's our culture, it's our tradition, it's this, it's that, like
you got to break the cycle and stop being bullied. And I think that is the real and it's tough because you're going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. And people are going to get set. I still do stuff for my parents and my mom that I don't want to do because I don't want to hurt her feelings. But I know I'm a grown ass man and I shouldn't need to have to do this anything I don't want to do.
well, and you do
And you're
and
just
when you've set
doing it out of
boundaries,
obligation.
she has a real hard time with
Yeah.
that. But it's
But I'm doing it
it's a
out of
hard boundary.
obligation that is not real
You shouldn't
from my
force
heart.
yourself to do something that you don't want to do.
Right. I like doing stuff from my heart that I care about and want to do, but forced forced
Forced interaction is never
interaction or
good.
forced charity or forced anything is still force. It's not right. And that's not a spiritual high vibe place to come from. Forcing people to do stuff. And we try to take that on with our kid is like if your kid says, I want to do this bad thing, and I'm like, here are the consequences, your free will. You can do this bad thing.
But
But
this is what
but
happens.
here's what's going to happen, A, B, and C. And if they do it, A, B, and C happens and you have to hold hard. I told you this was going to happen. I told you this is our response. That's on you now.
And we've done it.
And it is uncomfortable and unpleasant and you feel like a jerk, but it sets a realistic hard boundary. And if you do not do that, I think they turn into monsters later on because they'll become very manipulative to I'm going to do what I want and still turn the screws where there's no consequences. Also, I think why some of the new generation is really bad is they never impose consequences. Everybody was able to weasel out.
Oh yeah, well, so we don't do the public school thing.
Yeah, the government.
The government school isn't for us. So we do a homeschooling thing, but there's consequences are different, and I think the way the government school is set up now is you can loophole out of anything.
You can come up with any sort of mental anxiety and say and do whatever you want.
I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And they
I'm
can
being
just
attacked.
they get away with whatever. Whereas we have a real free and easy reign of like how you do things, but we do have it like not like a written contract, but like an understanding. Like we told her, if these things aren't done, then this doesn't happen.
And you got to hold your guns.
And it's come down to it a few times. And then I mean, it was I think we did pretty good because there was one time where rules were not being followed, and we just said, okay, that's it. Then you're in the house. And she was actually cool with it and stayed for like a month extra. Like I was like, do you
Yeah.
just
So
we're like, until you're ready to talk about this is what's happening. And she just took it as a timeout. And after that, she had really good boundaries about a lot of stuff.
and I think spiritually, we're telling this because you're like, I don't really care how they raise a kid. We're saying this because the same lesson applies to spiritual boundaries, I think, with
Yeah,
people around you.
if you can
I'm not going to be told these things,
if
and
you
I'm
can
not going to be
hold your
pushed to make
boundaries.
myself feel bad.
Yeah.
But I'm going to listen to why. If somebody can explain to me, oh, it's not good to eat pork because this, this, and this. And I'm like, that's stupid. Bacon's great. Why would I need to eat pork? Well, historically speaking, pork's so close to human that if you have a leaky gut or a bad allergy, you become allergic to the pork pellet, the molecules floating around your blood, and then you become allergic to your own tissue and you start having hypothyroid problems, blah, blah, blah. So there's a reason that I think, a logical reason that makes sense of why some of these
Some of the
religions don't
doctrine
eat
is in
pork.
there.
Because pork's a dangerous thing to eat. It's really easy to develop an autoimmune issue eating pork. That makes sense to me.
That I can get on board with,
Right.
not because I told you
Because
to.
some guy 2,000 years ago said, no, don't eat these one animals, but you can eat these other animals. You know, that makes more sense. So I think it's very much like, I will listen if somebody is willing to explain it to me and give me a teachable moment.
And if
But
it makes any sense.
yeah, but I'm not going to
Arbitrarily go, oh, because you said so,
this
because
guy's an
you're
elder, so therefore he knows everything. No. I mean,
I'm at the point in my life where prove it.
and
And if you can prove it, then we can talk. But don't give me an arbitrary because I say so.
Yeah, or this magic book says this.
And that's where I was going with the parenting. Like, a lot of stuff is like, most of our parenting was because I say so. Well, why do we have to go to? Because I said so. Like that was literally what was said. That was your answer for anything. And okay, yeah, you can force that, but there's no respect behind that.
No. You can enforce and bully your kids, but that is going to blow up as soon as they get old enough.
And I think that's what happened with churches. Like people can walk away now.
People can walk away, and they are in droves. Like, we're going to do another podcast about this, and rehash a little of this, but the numbers are frightening for organized religion. Every generation, it's going down like 10%. So in my lifetime, organized religion's gone down like 40%.
And what, 40, like 50%. You can look at any online church who isn't, like any church that puts their stuff online so you can see it, it is all very elderly. Like there's nobody under 65 in there.
Their grandkids
except for their grandkids that are forced to go.
No.
And you can tell as soon as they're old enough, they're gone.
Yeah, they don't look like they're enjoying the message. You know, they're not in there. And there are a few exceptions. I mean, we have a good friend who her kid goes to church with her, and they have a cool youth group, and it's fun, and the kids are really involved, and that's a positive experience. That's great. I don't feel it's so bullying.
Yeah.
But if you gave your kid the choice of saying, you can stay home on Sunday, but I'm going to go, what will they actually say?
And could you deal with that? Because now you have to explain it to the church. Where's your child?
Yeah, that's the other social. So
it's the bullying, the virtue signaling, and we're all going because that, like we see it on every TV show.
I had an ex-wife that would only go to church Easter and Christmas, and there was this massive fight because I did not want to go to her church. I felt fake there. It wasn't my church. I didn't agree with what they were doing. She wanted me to go anyway because when we finally got down to it, she didn't want the uncomfortable moment of going in her family saying, "Where's your husband?" That's all it was. It wasn't like she thought it was going to save my soul. It wasn't for my religion.
It wasn't. She wasn't cared about your
social face, and she didn't want to deal with it.
It was going to be awkward and uncomfortable for her.
It was going to be, that's it. It had nothing to do with spirituality.
And that is not a healthy place to be for spirituality.
I'm sure that you're listening going, yeah, I've had these experiences too.
So that's why I had to go to church with my mom. I was like, why do we have to go?
Yeah.
Do you know how bad it would look if I didn't if my own children didn't?
Yeah, and imagine if you were like the pastor's kid and didn't want to go.
Oh, there's no, you
You
don't
know,
get that choice, I don't think.
like the pastor's kid's like, yeah, I don't really believe this, and I'd rather do something else Sundays. You know, imagine that. And then the pastor has to explain, well, I want you to believe in your family, but I can't even get my own family to believe. So that's got to be really.
And honestly, from my point of view, I would have so much more respect.
Actually, I would too. I'd be like, actually, yeah.
He
I think
did
I would have
not push. He didn't
mad
force
respect
it.
for someone that's like, I'm going to let him develop his own speed and what he believes. I'll be here to answer questions.
Right now, my son doesn't feel he wants to be here, or my daughter doesn't feel like she wants to be here,
Yeah.
and
So
okay.
that's pretty.
I think I would have respect for that, but I'm few and far between. I think church has become so keeping up with the Joneses that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what's next then? How do we be spiritual and not be bullied and pushed in, depending on whatever your flavor is? You know, we lean, obviously this is called the Woocast, so we lean more into the Woo beliefs. You know, more what people would say. I don't even know how to put a name
I
on
don't
it,
know.
but
It's not really New Age anymore. New
it's
Age
not.
is like this
I
weird
just I think it's
whitewashed.
just lumped under spirituality at this point. And you're probably the same thing. If you ask someone like, "What do you believe?" and someone can't put a name on it, you're part of us. You're like, I don't know, a little this, a little that. I gotta believe what I want.
A little bit here, a little bit there.
So, how do you not get bullied? And I think a lot of it is communication. Of, hey, people don't want to hurt people's feelings around them, and they do stuff out of obligation, and you have to come to terms with setting a boundary and not getting pushed into a spiritual thing you're not comfortable with. And that is a tough thing. And it's just like any other boundary you put up in life. You have to practice, maybe plan how you're going to say it, try to be nice about it, but hold the boundary. No, I'm not doing this. And
It's
maybe
really
do some research and find your own thing.
and it's really hard. Like
It
I
is.
remember like trying to plead my case as like a 17-year-old.
You break grandma's heart. Granny's heart, that if you ain't a Christian, you're going to hell and you're going to burn in fire because you stopped going to church. That's so much guilt and such a toxic way to make someone go. Like, you want to go to church, be like, Granny's got the best life and she's really happy and I need to figure out why. That's how you get
Right?
them to
Not
go.
fear.
Not like you're going to burn in hell.
Entice them. Like
Yeah,
we have
like, why do
cookies
you
over
have,
here. Like
you guys have spiritual peace. I'd love to know how to do that. So I think that's a sign, and go ahead and explore, find your own thing if you need to.
and don't be afraid to say you don't know.
Yeah.
Like, don't be afraid and don't automatically shun somebody that says they don't know. Like I know so many people are like, oh, I watched a few things with that person, but they didn't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. That should tell you that they're probably on a better path than the dude over there that's like, if you pay me $200, I will show you the way.
Yeah, and it's kind of
like
I do feel
it's
like
very
it's a red.
smarmy, like
I feel like a real guru would lead by example and not, I have secret knowledge that you don't.
and
It's
not
more
that I'm
like,
saying
oh,
that
I've learned something. Here it is.
and I have no problem paying for
I don't either.
services and whatnot. Like that is
It
not
takes time to develop that stuff.
that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if somebody says, I have all the answers, but I'm only going to tell you if you pay me this set amount of money. Like, no, you don't have all the answers. None of us have all the answers. And it doesn't matter if I was a millionaire and gave you $1,000,000, you still wouldn't have all the answers.
Yeah, there are some religions that are based, you pay, you get to know more knowledge. You pay, you get to know more knowledge.
That's insane to me,
That should be a major
that's
red
a
flag.
major red flag. That's,
Now, don't get me wrong, I do believe in getting paid for your work. So, like, say a guru spends a year writing a book so people can understand that information easier and put it down. Sure. Like we do lithomancy. So this is a lithomancy channel. If you didn't notice, it's called Lupo's Lithomancy, but we podcast out of here. and that is like if you never heard of it, it's kind of like tarot, but we use crystals. We divine with crystals.
Divination through crystals.
Divination through crystals. We talked about, since it is kind of a lost art, and we are major players in the field, maybe designing a course. People have asked, how do I do lithomancy? And it's not a easy thing to necessarily start with. There's a lot to it. And if I have to sit down for 100 hours and make a video course, I want to be compensated for my time. Although, I mean, if I was super rich, I guess I could put it out for free.
So the claptrap term for that is energetic exchange.
Energetic exchange, yes.
Which, I mean, I actually believe in.
You're right.
It kind of got ridiculous. The energetic
ridiculous.
exchange is $20.
Right. And it's like the meaning behind it is absolutely dead on and right, because I do feel like there should be an exchange.
There should be an exchange.
But it just got it got overused, and now it's silly.
Well, it was, like, so cash is currency is, like, blah, blah, blah. But being online, cash is just the simplest way to do this.
Yeah.
Now, in person, I would take barter.
Absolutely.
We have.
We do take barter. And sometimes we give straight to charity. Like, I give away a lot of charity to what I feel, if I'm called to do it or it's the right person.
You give away a lot in your practice?
Yeah, I used to give away tons of free stuff to patients.
Honestly, I would say 25% of your output was charity. You were pretty,
Probably.
It was really high.
I got a lot of talking to about that I'd give away too much. But that's what I was drawn to do.
If that's what you're called to do, then that's what
I'm called to do. And so I'm not saying like if a pastor designs something that, he wants to do a weekend spiritual retreat for you guys, there's a lot of expenses associated with that, and I get that. And he should be able to make a living. It's more of, I think we have the beef of, I have secret knowledge, and only way you're going to get it is if I'm going to charge you for it. And that feels schmarmy.
It does. The secret knowledge thing always feels sketchy to me.
Right. When I have to watch a YouTube video,
well, and especially when I'm
where they're like
watching these people and they don't look happy, that's another,
Well, I think the difference, if I'm watching a YouTube video, and I've seen this a lot, where it's almost like an infomercial, and they'll tell you everything you want to know except what you really need to know. Then you got to buy the course or the book. It's just like 20-minute infomercial pitch, and then you find out you're watching a pitch, and you're like, oh, just tell me.
Watch this video to see how this man destroyed the industry.
Yeah, we joke about that all the time. I think the difference is, if you have a lithomancy question, I'll answer it, but there's a lot to learn, so it's easier to buy it in a package. But if you want to surf around, you could find all that information out for free. I don't hide the information.
I mean, honestly, you could you could watch our live streams and figure it out.
Figure it out, but it's a lot of work, and is what's your time worth? I'm going to put it all in a nice little package. Here you go, and with all my tips. That to me makes sense. But if you met me in real life and had questions, I'd teach you if I had time. I don't hide the information. It's not some
secret
mysterious secret information. It's just a matter of, it's a lot of information and it takes time. And I want to be compensated for that time, because it took me a lot of time to make. That's all it is. That's it.
It did.
It's not deeper than that. And so I don't know. Maybe that's my personal hang up. You tell us in the comments.
It's hard. So it's hard to be spiritual and still make a living.
Yeah, we should do a podcast on that, because I know we dove into it here, but I feel like that's a deep dive of the whole construct of money makes us both so mad.
It really does.
That's a whole nother deep dive. So we have lots of ideas for podcasts. If you guys enjoyed this, please comment. Let us know you're actually listening and that you listen to the whole thing. That's huge. I like making long form content. I don't like being rushed. We do a lot of lithomancy stuff that feels very rushed. We do shorts and stuff like that online that's under a minute. And it's just not something I really enjoy.
I despise them.
I really like taking time.
I don't feel like I can give you any information in a minute.
No, not truly like knowing us, and I might as well be a dancing monkey.
I mean, I'm already doing a cold read.
Yeah.
So
maybe you put this on while you're cooking. Maybe you're driving right now, and you're like, man, I really need to kill an hour and a half, and I don't feel like listening to music. Perfect. Put us on. And hopefully you got something out of this, and we've helped you a little bit.
Or maybe it just made you think.
Yeah. Because our goal here is to help people. Do we know all the answers? No,
Ew.
not at all. Are we wrong sometimes? Yeah, we're wrong. But we're learning and we try to own it if we are wrong and be like, 6 months ago I thought this, but now I don't. That's a sign of maturing and listening, of owning your own stuff. And I think that's a
Oh yeah.
very important.
Well, and the ego that goes behind never admitting you're wrong
Yeah.
that's not a healthy place to live in.
We appreciate you sharing this podcast, telling people about it, and letting us know you actually listen, because this does take some time for us to make, and we hope people are actually going to listen and use this. Also, if you let us plug ourselves, if you want to come over for a Lithomancy read, we do live reads on air. You can come and get a reading, or if you would like a personal reading, you can always hit us up on
They're all personal. You're thinking
private reading. Excuse me, what did I say? Personal, private. Yeah. There you go. I'm corrected again. We do like a live show where you can come on, and we do like discounted reads while it's live. But if you wanted a actual private reading where it's just for you, then we do that too. Or you just listen to this for free. That's cool too.
Yep.
We just taking the opportunity to
Or
tell you,
come
by
to
the
the
way,
live
we have this
streams.
other thing.
We do one stone readings all throughout them.
Yeah. We give away a lot of free stuff too. There you go. Getting mad at me because I give away too much.
Yeah. I don't get mad about it. I just say we have to work more.
Yeah, that's true. I'm definitely. I think I'm one of those guys that if I became a millionaire, I'd just give everything away.
Probably. I'm no good. Money just doesn't really mean that much to me.
Yeah. What's funny is like saying if I became a millionaire, which the way inflation and currency is now, like a millionaire is not that big of a deal. Like
it's
it used
really
to
not.
be.
It's like
like I guess I have to say a multimillionaire. I don't know. Like
billionaire.
Like a millionaire barely buys you a home in California. Like you can get maybe a 2-bedroom ranch, $1 million. So I guess a millionaire doesn't mean what it used to mean.
You get this tent.
Yeah, you get a nicer tent. You get the double tent for $1 million. Yeah, California. That's a whole nother topic. California spirituality. We should just have a whole topic for that.
That's a whole beast right there.
There we go. So that's all we wanted to say. And thank you for staying with us. We love you guys. Take care of each other out there, and take care of yourself too. A little self-love.
Self-love is okay.
It's okay.
It's okay to take care of yourself.
Set your boundaries. It's okay. You're not a bad person for doing it.
Well, and we've been told that you are.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of friends by setting boundaries, and I'm okay with it.
I am too.
We'll get over it.
It gives me more time to take care of myself.
We love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.